Thank you, Alan. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It really is lovely to be with you. This is where we get down to some serious stuff. Now, you've had the fun and games. Having got that out of the way, I intend that this afternoon we should get down and do a little bit of work. So if you don't mind, I'll prepare. The party's over. This is where we roll our sleeves up and do some selling. I want to start by thanking both John, Bill, and particularly Jerry for the incredible job they've been doing and for inviting me along today. Particularly Jerry, because we found a mutual friend over many, many years. And it's been a big thrill for me to come along here today and indeed for the last few days to enjoy the activities and the social aspect of getting together with many of you so closely associated with retailing around Australia. I'm going to shout at you. I will probably bore some of you. I might even motivate some of you to get up off your ass and go out and sell something. I will not swear at you. And just in case you think that's a contradiction, for the lady down the front, an ass was a biblical term, transportation used by early shopkeepers and customers to get to and from the office. But I do hope that in the course of our get-together this afternoon, I can leave with you one or two ideas that will perhaps help you, irrespective of what type of business you may be in. And I refer now either to retailing, manufacturing, or any specific branch of the retail trade. I call it a selling smorgasbord. If you go away with half of one idea today that will in fact increase your sales, I believe we will have achieved something. Does this mic work all right? Can you folks at the back hear me all right? Right up the back, yes? The reason I asked was that about a week ago in Wollongong, I was doing one of these presentations to a group of people, and there was a lady right at the back where you are, madam, right up on the top. And she said, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I've been going for about 20 minutes, I guess. And she said, I've been listening to you for 20 minutes, and I haven't heard a word you said. And there was a lady right down the front where you are, leapt to her feet. She said, I've been down the front for 20 minutes. I've heard every word you've said, and I'll gladly change places with the lady at the back. So that'll give you some idea of what you're in store for this afternoon. I'd like to talk to you, if I may, about the oldest profession. Now, contrary to what some of you may think, and what the ladies of the night may tell you, I believe the oldest profession is indeed selling. Long before Eve begat anybody, she had to sell Adam on the apple. And you know, that brings up a couple of very interesting points, and I want to share those with you at the outset of our get-together today. I have, as a matter of interest, a little convenience store just across from my office in Sydney that is run by a Jamaican. And this gentleman never seems to be amazed, or ceases to be amazed, I should say, at the fact that we stand there with our black hair and our blue eyes and our white skin and call him colored. Think about it. He told me a lovely story the other day, and I'd like to share it with you because I believe communication is very important in what we do. And it related to a question originally posed to Adam by Eve, who was rather anxious to know whether the Lord was actually black or white. And Adam said, I don't know, but I'll go and ask. And he asked the Lord, and the Lord replied, I am what I am. And that somewhat confused Adam with his limited degree of learning at that stage. And he went back and he told Eve. And Eve said, go back and ask again. And he went back and he returned and he asked the same question. And the reply came back the same. I am what I am. And Adam went back to Eve and he said, he's white. Adam said, white? And Eve said, what do you mean white? How do you know he's white? He said, well, if he'd been black, he would have said, I is what I is. So communication is important, and I believe that communication will play a very big part in what I want to talk to you about today. I learned more about communication while I was in Ireland than anywhere else. Are there any Irish people in the audience? Oh, a few up. I'll speak slowly, madam, it's all right. Particularly for the benefit of Jerry, wherever he is. But I know of no other country in the world where you hear a conversation that goes something like, where were you going when I saw you going to work this morning? When I caught up with you, you were gone. Now, if that makes sense to you, you're Irish. Or you'd pick up the telephone and the voice at the other end of the phone would say, is that yourself? That used to crack me up. I went to Ireland as managing director of the largest below-the-line advertising agency in Europe. The very first client we had was a company called the White Horse Whiskey Company, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with the brand, if not the flavor. White Horse came to us because they were suffering very considerably in a marketplace, and I believe there's a message for each and every one of you, irrespective of your type of business, in this little story. White Horse were getting thoroughly trounced in the area of supermarket sales. Liquor sales had just been introduced into supermarkets in the Republic of Ireland, and as a result, they came to us because their competitors were literally licking the pants off them. They wanted to put together a premium promotion. The idea was you tore off so many labels, you saved up so many bottle caps, and you sent them in and you got a beautiful big towel with a lovely picture of a white horse on it. Well, the promotion sounded great until we went out and we did a little bit of research, because I firmly believe that if you're going to put a promotion together, you should know what your market is all about. And we discovered an amazing thing. We discovered that something like 64% of the people who purchased spirits in a supermarket situation did not specify brand. They walked in, they said, could I have a bottle of scotch, could I have a bottle of whiskey, whatever it was. Presumably hubby'd rung up the wife from the office and said, I'm bringing some friends home, could you make sure that the liquor cabinet is stocked? And the wife had gone in and said, could I have a flask of wine or whatever? And being a non-drinker and a non-smoker, I felt that it was important that I got out into the marketplace and ascertain just what the feel was. And so what we decided to do was, rather than spend thousands of dollars on a premium promotion, apart from which we worked out very quickly that you would have had to be saving for approximately 2 years to even come close to owning one of those towels, we decided to concentrate on the last 2 feet, what I consider to be the most neglected area in retail marketing today, the gap that exists between your staff and the customer. And we put on a competition, in fact an overseas holiday, for the little girl behind the counter that sold the most White Horse over the period of the promotion. In fact, we came up with a little slogan. When you walked in to a supermarket and you asked the little girl behind the liquor counter for a bottle of scotch, her reply was conditioned. White Horse, of course, madam. And the sale was made. We found that we not only increased our sales by something like 32% over our competitors, we did it for half the expenditure of their current promotional activities. And the message I believe that's there for all of us is that a little bit of motivation at the point of sale can often overcome vast amounts of money spent on general advertising. And I believe that applies not just to retail situations. I believe it's equally true in manufacturing, and I'll talk to you about a little idea a little bit later on in our get-together today along those lines. I remember, I'll never forget that survey. I went out with a clipboard. I knocked on a few doors myself because I felt that it was essential. I got the feel of the market. I'll never forget the first door that was opened to me. I was invited inside. There was a raging party going on, and I thought, my goodness, what lovely, friendly people these Irish are, until I suddenly discovered I was in the middle of a wake. And I said to the fellow that invited me in, who's dead? He said, I don't know, but I think it's the fellow in the coffin. I'll never forget knocking on my next door neighbor's door. I just wanted to introduce myself, let them know I'd arrived. A little boy about 6 years of age answered the door. I said, is Mom and Dad in? He said, no, as a matter of fact, they're not. Dad got burnt this morning. And I said, my God, I hope it wasn't serious. He said, well, they don't mess around at the crematorium. So I guess it is a question of understanding. And if you don't take anything that I say too seriously this afternoon, and if you just relax, I guarantee you we'll have a little bit of fun with one or two unique ideas. You know, people love to buy. Contrary to popular thought, buying and selling is not making people do something they like doing. If I were to give each and every one of you $1,000 today, I don't suppose I'd get an awful lot of change by the weekend, would I? People love to buy. And in talking to young people in retailing today, I never cease to be amazed at how few of them underestimate the role that you folks in retailing, and indeed they, play today. I firmly believe that there is no more important role in our community. I don't care if your brother is a brain surgeon, he doesn't perform a more useful function than that little girl who stands behind your counter. Because quite frankly, I firmly believe, and I know I won't get a lot of argument about it, that nothing in our society happens until somebody sells something. Isn't that true? Think about it. Nothing in our society happens until somebody sells something. And selling isn't making people do what they don't want to do. It's making it easy for people to do what they love doing. If you remember nothing else today, remember that. Selling is making it easy for people to do what they love doing. I don't know why we try to complicate the issue and make it hard. People love to spend money. And I'm going to show you how to get them to spend money in the course of our few minutes get-together this afternoon. I visited a store. Oh, let me leave you to this little thought, and I thank one of our previous speakers for bringing this up, this today and are you right syndrome. The problem of walking into a store and being immediately approached by a member of the staff who comes up to you and says, "May I help you?" And as was pointed out, you're very lucky if you get, "May I help you?" I got "You're right, mate" the other day. There's got to be a better approach. But the problem with that is that I've been on the other side of the counter. I know what it's like to sit there watching customers wandering around aimlessly while members of your staff are drilling holes in their ears or picking their noses. I know what it's like. So what is the alternative? I feel pressure if somebody approaches me when I come into the store. I'm sure many of you answer the same, as our speaker pointed out the other day. Oh, I'm just looking. What is the correct approach? Well, we found a little gimmick. The use of your name. The simple addition of the individual's name on the approach to a customer transforms the situation magically. A lady walks into your store, the little girl goes up, she says, "Good morning, madam, my name's Jenny, may I help you?" It is no longer a sales approach, it's an introduction. We're used to introductions. The member of your staff feels comfortable about it. The customer feels comfortable about it. They may still very well say, "Oh no, I'm just looking, thank you." But more importantly, in most cases, they may remember the name. And a week or so later, they come back in and they say, "Oh, excuse me, Jenny, I wonder if you have..." And that's important, that we overcome this lack of friendliness. And in this particular sphere, in the sphere that we're talking today of the independent retailer, this becomes so vital in the high-pressure supermarket situation and multiple store situation that many of us find ourselves in. I visited a store recently as part of a promotion we were doing for a shopping center on the New South Wales coast. And we make a promise, we make an undertaking to the audiences wherever I appear, and it's simply this: I make the same commitment to you. If within the next 12 months you feel that there's a promotional idea that I can help you with, that we may have had some experience with in some past situation, just call me up wherever I am and call my office in Sydney, and I'll ring you back free of charge or rather I should say I'll ring you back. It won't be free of charge. I'll reverse the call, and that's the only charge you'll pay. But please feel free to make use of that facility if you feel that we can help you in any way over the next 12 months with any promotional idea. I made that commitment to this group of retailers in this particular shopping center, and two ladies came up to me after the get-together and said, "Peter, I wonder if you'd mind. We've planned a television campaign, And we've got the script back from the television company, and we'd like you to just take a look at it if you'd be so kind, and advise us as to whether or not you think there are any changes we should make. Well, I looked at the script. It started out, "Welcome to the friendliest store in town." Welcome to the friendliest store in town. How can I describe these ladies to you? Two old witches is the term that immediately comes to mind. I mean, these were the most miserable old bats I think I've ever met in my life. In the course of the 1 week that we were with that center, we had no less than 4 complaints from people who had actually been insulted in the friendliest store in town. Now, these ladies had a great gimmick going for them. If they'd put a big sign up that said, "Welcome to the unfriendliest store in town," they'd have probably had a queue of people waiting to get in. And when they went in and got insulted, they'd have gone away happy because they got what they came for, right? If you don't got it, don't advertise it. And if you don't like what you're doing, ladies and gentlemen, for God's sakes, get out and find another business. There's plenty of jobs around, despite all the hoo-ha that you may hear to the contrary. But I believe that the business of retailing deserves the very best that we can give it. And if you're not happy in what you're doing, if you can't walk up to that counter with a smile on your face at the beginning of each day, then I believe that you've found the wrong vocation, and the vocation that you've selected deserves better than that. Compliments, I often say, create confidence. And we heard a little bit about this from one of our previous speakers also. Compliments create confidence. Let me tell you what I mean by that. We're a race of knockers. I hope I've used the right term. I don't want to upset anybody at this stage of the day, but you know what I mean. You run into your best friend, right? He's got a new suit on. He says, "New suit?" You say, "Yes." He says, "Where'd you get it?" You say, "Grace Brothers." He says, "What's the matter? Didn't they have one your size?" Or if 1922 ever comes back, you'll be the best dressed man in town. Everybody wants to criticize everybody else, don't they? I mean, that's really what our society here in Australia seems to be getting to. And yet all we wanted was a little compliment, wasn't it? Let me teach you a little gimmick. When you get back to your stores, I challenge you to try this. The first customer you encounter, compliment them, and watch what happens. They will spend longer in your store because of that compliment than they would have done normally. And you can always find a genuine reason for complimenting anybody. I don't care whether it's the color of their hair, the smile on their face, the clothes they're wearing, a piece of their jewelry. You will always find a genuine reason for issuing a compliment. And we've found that they will stay longer in your store. You will see them literally walking around, looking at the shelves, hanging around because they suddenly feel warm and good inside. But something else happens. Let's assume a lady's walked into a dress shop. As she went up to the counter, the little girl said, "My, madam, I like your hairdo." And the lady said, "Thank you very much." And she goes off and she's looking around. She sees a dress. She likes the dress. She tries it on. It looks good. But $100, that's kind of a lot of money for a dress. She thinks, "I like the dress. I like my hairdo. When I came in, the little girl behind the counter liked my hairdo. I wonder what she thinks of the dress." And so it's to her she turns for advice. Confidence, the result of a simple compliment. It works. Now, you may laugh at some of the things I tell you this afternoon, I hope. Right now, you look more like a jury than an audience. This lot down here look like they wouldn't even take prisoners. They look so hostile. But seriously, they work. They're not theoretical ideas, but each and every one of them have been tried and proved and tested under working conditions. We know that the longer a customer spends in your store, and you should be aware of it, the more money they will spend. It is directly proportional. The longer they spend in your store, the more money they will spend. That's why we have piped music in shopping centers. That's why we try to create an atmosphere that make people want to stay around a little bit longer. Let me tell you this, until a customer visits your store no less than 4 times, they are not customers at all. They are casual shoppers. I spent a number of years with the Safeway organization, and I will never forgive Bill, wherever he is, if he's out there today, for the incredibly embarrassing and most delightful situation he placed me in on Saturday when I was sat for lunch with our mystery guest speaker and conversed with him for 15 minutes on America and offered to show him around Sydney. I will not take my wig off at the end of this presentation. But I loved it, and he was brilliant. But seriously, we know that until a customer's been into your store no less than 4 times, they are not customers. And there are ways to ensure that a customer comes back 2, 3, or 4 times. And in the promotional workshops, which we do from time to time, we look at various ways of doing that. And I'd like to suggest 1 or 2 of those to you a little bit further down the track. I've got to watch my time this afternoon. But the funny thing, ladies and gentlemen, about this business of retailing, which we're in, and I've been associated with it joyfully now for some 20-odd years, is that the moment we step behind a counter, we somehow lose sight of the fact that customers are really people. I did a lecture cruise on P&O a few months ago, and I was talking to a retailer after one of our get-togethers, and we were discussing the problems of dealing with his customers. And I said to him, have you ever sat back and realized that the person you're talking about is really no different than you are? They have likes and dislikes, the same as you have. If I go into one more area, or to one more group of retailers, or to one more township where they say to me, our people are different here. Stop me if you've heard that. You talk to a fellow customer who comes from Perth, or from Darwin, or from New South Wales, and they say to you, oh, but our customers are different. How are they different? They get up in the morning, they get dressed, they comb their hair, they eat food? No, there's no difference, basically. But ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you this. We forget in this industry that customers are people. It's a little bit like forgetting your name when you go to the toilet. Are you aware you do that? I can tell by the stunned look on your face you're not. Let me make a suggestion to you. When you get home today, when you get back to the hotel, when you get back to your homes, wait until somebody is comfortably seated on the john and go and rattle the door handle. And a voice inside will say, there's somebody in here. We forget that customers are people. You won't do it after today. Next customer who walks through your store, you'll think, haha, toilet. No, not true. But I don't know what it is about our business that causes us to do that. You know, what is the thing, I'm sure you've all been on a holiday at some stage or other. What is the thing you remember most about your holiday? It's not the weather. It's not the food. It's not the buildings. It's the people that you meet, right? I mean, you meet a swinging chick, it's a great holiday. You meet a bum, it's a bum holiday. What can I tell you? We are in a people-meeting business. Every day of our lives, we're meeting new people. And yet, for some reason, we forget, don't we? We lose sight of the fact that customers are people. You know, Bill Gove, one of America's top motivators, tells a beautiful story. I hope I won't offend anybody by sharing it to you. I'm sure I won't, because it was told to him by a priest. And it relates to a little fellow a little minister who sat in his church in a place called Passaic, New Jersey. And he's looking out the window, and coming down the road is this most incredible sight. And so impressed is he that he rushes to the door and he dials the Vatican. And a tired, sleepy voice answers the phone. And he says, Your Holiness, I'm sorry to trouble you, My name is Father John Brogan. I'm at the Holy Trinity Church in Passaic, New Jersey. And I'm looking out the window, and coming down the road is this most incredible sight. There is this beautiful figure of a man. He's dressed in white flowing robes. He carries a cane, a staff. He has a lamb under his arm. He touches the eyes of the blind, and they see. What should I do? What should I do? And the voice at the other end of the phone says, "Look busy, my son. It might be the boss." Now, how often are your staff stood around in your store trying to look busy? Because there are those kind of days, aren't there? And you can only dust the shelves and move the stock around so many times in the course of a slow day. Let me suggest this to you. Let me suggest that they use that time to make friends with customers. You see, once you get on a first-name basis with your customers, it takes a hell of a lot for the opposition down the road to take them away. You know, I spent a number of years in the trading stamp industry in the United States and the UK and Europe. And we used to have a lovely gimmick in those days. We used to look for stores where a new store was going up down the road. And we'd call on the small local retailer, and there was this big new supermarket or whatever it was going up across the road, and we'd go in and we'd say, "Look, surely we'll be able to assist you in retaining your customers." And of course, we'd 9 cases out of 10 get the boot out the door. And I used to wait and go back about 2 or 3 weeks after this new operation had opened. And I'd say to the fellow, "How's it going?" And he'd say, "Oh, didn't worry me. I haven't lost any of my customers." But I'd say, the fellow down the road who's just opened up, he's doing $100,000 a week. Where did he get the customers? Did he bring them with him? Of course not. You may not have lost any of your customers, but everyone that's now going into his store that wasn't coming into your store was your customer if you'd taken the opportunity to cash in on it. I'm reminded of a remark in an interview that John Laws made only a few weeks ago when somebody asked him whether he attributed his success to being in the right place at the right time. And John replied, and I thought it a most inspiring remark. He said, "You know, the problem with success is not being in the right place at the right time, but recognizing the fact that you're there." And I thought that very profound. Many of us are in the right place right now if we only recognized the opportunities that awaited us there. I'd like to take a couple of minutes to tell you a little bit about the buying habits of people. One of the divisions that I was associated with the Safeway organization in the United States was responsible, and this is why I was so sucked in by our guest speaker, for statistics, for recording all kinds of useless information relating to the buying habits of members of the public. We discovered, and I'm sure most of you are aware, if you've ever worked in a supermarket situation, that people shop blind. Do you know what I mean by shopping blind? I mean, if you've ever watched a lady with a trolley heading down a supermarket aisle, you'll know exactly what I mean. She looks neither to the left or neither to the right, hell-bent for leather for where she knows certain products are. And in those early days, and I'm going back a fair while, we used to take items every so often and we would strategically move them. The staple items, the tea and the sugar and the coffee and the items that she needed on each visit on a regular basis. Oh, you can't play hide and seek with them, but if you take one of these lines from time to time and you just move it to a new location, in finding that new location, she would discover a lot of new lines and a lot of new products that perhaps she would have sailed right by under normal circumstances. I was responsible in the early days of the development of the supermarket industry for perfecting a device which many of you will be familiar with today. We used to call it air sales, or rather aisle sales from airspace. And the best way I can describe it to you is the little basket that clips onto the shelf, like we used to have on the front of our bicycles, and it sticks out into the aisle. And we would put certain lines in there with a little red tag that indicated, like a waving red flag to a bull, here is a special, stop. And in picking that item, we hoped that she would see or find something else around that particular location. Now, a young boy, one of the shelf fillers, the young lads that come in at night into the major supermarkets and restock the shelves overnight, made an error one day. He took the can openers, which should have been in the homeware section, and he placed them in a shelf extender immediately adjacent to canned goods, peas, beans, whatever they were. And we suddenly found that the sale of can openers rocketed beyond our wildest consideration. And somebody asked the question why, and we discovered what we now refer to as the associated product sale. In other words, in picking down to pick up that tin of beans or that tin of carrots, on her way back she would see the can opener, the two items would gel in her mind. She would remember that Johnny buried the can opener in the back garden, or they'd left it at the beach, or the one they had was worn out, and she would pick that up and take it away with her. And if you're not using the associated product line or idea in your store, you should be. I was in Woolworths a few weeks ago, and I noticed that in amongst the greengrocery, in amongst the lettuces and the tomatoes and the carrots and the salad items, were now standing bottles of salad dressing. Not where they originally belonged, back on the bottle shelf, but when you reached for the tomatoes and the cucumbers, you suddenly remembered you didn't have the dressing associated with it. I believe you can get a substantial increase in your business, irrespective of what your business is, by concentration on that second product idea, the making of a second sale at the time that you make the first one. If you talk to anyone in the motor car business, they will tell you that you are more susceptible to buy accessories and the bits that go with the vehicle at the time of the initial purchase than subsequently. And that's why you can't get out of the showroom without being offered the optional air conditioning or the stereo system or the record player or the seat covers or the white wall tires. The same applies in our business today. If you can train your staff to look for that second product sale. If the lady buys a tube of toothpaste, chances are she needs a toothbrush. If she buys shoes, she needs polish to clean them. I was talking to a retailer with a shoe store the other day. He said to me, Peter, we're not selling polish the way we should be selling polish. And I said, where have you got it racked? He said, I've got it piled up at the checkout, right beside the till. They can't miss it. I said, have you ever stopped to watch your customers? Have you watched a customer when she approaches the till? She's looking in her purse for a bank card or for her cash. The last thing in the world she's thinking about is shoe polish. And we took a couple of little baskets and we racked the appropriate colored polish alongside the appropriate shoes. And we found that the sale of polish over doubled as a result of that little move. A little bit of creative thinking in your store, ladies and gentlemen, about store layout would not go amiss, let me advise you. Stock rotation and the appropriate opportunity to cash in on the second sale. I hate to be critical of any one particular type of retailer, but if there's one that stands out in my mind more than any other, it's the newsagent in a shopping center. Generally speaking, you'll find they lay the papers out right in front of the store. You don't even have to go in to pick up a copy of the daily paper. I don't care if he's selling gold blocks at $5 each, you'd never get to know about him. Now I say to these people, why don't you take the papers and why don't you move them inside? And they say, oh, we'd lose sales. Of course you'd lose sales. Sure, you'll lose the odd paper or two. But compared with the profit that you'll pick up on the women's magazines and the omnis and the stationery that they forgot, with the substantially increased margins of profits, will more than compensate for that little bit you're going to lose by having them right outside and not bringing people through your store. I don't know whether you know it, but that's why in the early days of supermarketing, we kept the meat market right at the back of the store, because the meat was the one item that she came into the store 2 or 3 times a week to buy fresh. And so we would take her right through the store so that she'd pick something else up on her 2 or 3 trips each week. And that's just creative merchandising, ladies and gentlemen. That doesn't take a great deal of expertise, but it works. Hairdressers. You've got a lady locked in a chair for anything up to 4 hours. You could sell her a block of flats in that time. Creative merchandising, the opportunity to cash in on the existing sales situation. On my way down here this afternoon, or rather not this afternoon, but on Friday, I paused in Maroochydore, just up the road from here. I was fascinated. I passed a store, and in the window they had nothing but Diet Coke. Nothing. A whole window of Diet Coke. And I went inside the store, and would you believe, on every shelf, Diet Coke? And I said to the lady concerned, I said, my God, you must sell a hell of a lot of Diet Coke. She says, as a matter of fact, we don't sell a lot of Diet Coke. She says, but the fella who sells me Diet Coke, boy, can he sell Diet Coke. I will enjoy some Diet Coke. I don't know, time does not permit us to go into too many specific merchandising ideas. I don't know how many of you today are in a mind to want to go into a sort of workshop situation. I asked Jerry earlier about the availability of the little theaterette that we have down here. And I would like to suggest, if any of you would like to get together for a practical workshop on promotional ideas, and I'm talking now about things like loss leaders and self-liquidators and so on, and various actual specifics, I would be only too delighted to do that with you around about, say, 5 o'clock, which our program would permit, for maybe half an hour or so. I'm sure there's one of our suppliers out there who would be delighted to sponsor such an event. I know Telecom have already offered me a free computer phone and a Viatel system if I do that, from which I'm going to buy one of the damn things anyway. So, but if you'd like to have that event, if you'd let them know at the reception desk, and if there's a sufficient response, we'll put that little workshop together at about about 5 o'clock, say, which won't cut across anything else, and we'll go for about half an hour just on practical ideas that you can use to develop your business. I'd like to share one with you here this afternoon. I had our good friends out there at the poster stand, if I can get one of these out. Put this together for me, this beautiful display. And if you haven't used this this poster material out there, ladies and gentlemen, let me recommend it to you. It's a fortune saver. Let me tell you, in terms of sign writing, but I'll come on to that in a second and give you an example of the sort of thing we might cover at this workshop if you'd like to go ahead with it. The other thing that I wanted to mention very briefly to you here this afternoon was the Retail Directory of Promotions, which we launched here, and which your association have been kind enough to offer to market. It has been an outstanding success here at the convention. 2 have already been stolen. None have been sold. But it is a very practical tool, ladies and gentlemen, and I'd like to make a point to you, if I may, by simply reading a couple of the remarks in the early stages, because I think this is particularly pertinent to what we're doing and talking about here this afternoon. Promotional success or failure is not measured by the number of people it attracts, but by the amount of sales it generates. In many cases, managers put on promotions solely because they feel that the budget's there to be spent, with little thought of the merchandising possibilities that exist in every promotion. And I conclude by saying, remembering too, that no matter how good the promotion, how effective the advertising, the effort and money is wasted if we overlook merchandising at the point of sale. It's the money in the till that really spells success or failure. Strong loss leaders, competitive pricing are essential, but no more so than a clean, pleasant atmosphere with clean, pleasant facilities. Neither, in my experience, will succeed without the other. And to those of you who have forgotten more than I'll ever know in this particular field. May this serve as nothing more than a reminder. If you haven't taken a look at this directory, it is designed for people who have had no practical experience in putting together promotions and promotional ideas. And it will show you in the very simplest way, and for the couple of people who've been test running it for the last year for me, it has become their Bible. And I would heartily recommend to you that you take a look at it. I'll be out there after our get-together, and I'd be only too pleased to show you how simply and effectively it will work, and it will save you thousands of dollars. Ladies and gentlemen, this afternoon, I'd like to leave you, if I may, with a motivation idea. I talked about motivation at the point of sale, the ability to motivate our staff. And you know, there's always a problem in this field of motivation. How do you motivate young people to sell more? It's all right to turn to them and say, oh, look, sales are down a little bit this week, but couldn't we make a little greater effort? Well, let me share a thought with you. I don't know how many of you out there today know what your average customer spend is. Could I see a show of hands, please? That's good. That's excellent. But it should be every hand. How many of you, and I know most of you will, know what your average weekly traffic flow is? How many customers come through your store a week? Fine. Now, there is a figure, the average customer spend, which is very easy to ascertain today. In the days of the old wooden drawer, it was a little more difficult, but today with computerization, with tills, and where most of our staff know exactly what we take, they may not know what our profit is, but they certainly know what we're taking at the till. Armed with these facts, by simply dividing the amount of cash taken by the number of people past your checkout or transactions on your till, you'll come up with the average customer spend. All right, what good is that information? Well, it's not a lot of good unless you make practical use of it. And I always, in talking to retailers, say that if you are not graphing your business, if you are not recording on a graph day to day, week to week, month to month, your actual turnover figure, you're making a very grave mistake and overlooking one of the greatest marketing tools that are available to you. And if you don't know how to do it, ask your kids. They'll show you. Because the seasonal trends and the trends in retailing, and anyone who does graph their business will verify this to you, don't change. The peaks may rise and the dips may go down, but the trends remain the same. Now, armed with these two pieces of information, let's assume that on Monday morning you look at your graph and you see that this week is going to be a dip. There is a drop. This is a fall off. This is where everybody clears out of town and goes off on holiday or goes away to the Greata convention or whatever. And you want to do something about it. You know that your average customer spend is, let's for example say, $4.50. It might be $1.25. It doesn't matter. You turn to your staff and say, okay, gang, I've done the calculations. We are averaging $1.25, $4.50 per customer spend in our store. If you make that $4.75 or $1.50 this week, I'll take you all out to dinner. Suddenly, they have got a target to shoot for. Suddenly, it isn't just increased business. Suddenly they know they need just 50 cents extra out of every customer. That toothbrush or that tube of toothpaste or that can of shoe polish. Suddenly they've got a target to shoot for. Now, you know, for example, and if you plan such a motivational event, you don't plan it when you know you're going to have a fall off, as contradictory as that may sound. You plan it when you know you're going to get an increase. And what happens at the end of the first week? Whether they try or not, they're going to hit target. And they're all going to go out to dinner and they're all going to feel damn good about it, even if you can't deduct it from expenses. 2 weeks later, your graph tells you that there's a dip ahead. So you go back to the youngsters and you say, okay, gang, we did it before, let's do it again. We're now averaging $4.50 a customer, let's go for $4.75. They know they achieved it before, they know they can achieve it again, and you will find they will achieve it again. That's what motivation is all about. But unless you're armed with the figures and the mechanics of doing it, it becomes somewhat of a problem. Try it, use it, I promise you it will work. Graphing and keeping those sort of figures and that sort of information is very important to you. I'd like, if I may, to finish off today with a specific type of merchandising promotion. And I picked this one because I believe it's equally applicable to manufacturer or retailer alike. And it's the term Self Liquidator. I hate to ask whether there is anybody in the audience who doesn't know what a Self Liquidator is, because everybody is always embarrassed to put up their hands. So let me tell you anyway. A Self Liquidator is probably the greatest underrated promotional idea that was ever conceived. And I get very annoyed when I hear people talking to me about the cost of promoting, the high cost of merchandising, advertising, and promoting. Ladies and gentlemen, it needn't be high. A little bit of creative thinking is all that's required. Let me tell you about the Self Liquidator. The Self Liquidator is probably the biggest and most forceful promotional device used, for example, in the gas station industry in Europe today. You cannot drive onto the forecourt of a gas station there without seeing a sign that says, buy 4 gallons of gas or more, fill your tank with petrol, and you can have this beautiful crystal goblet, which normally sells for $5, for only $2 with a purchase of $5 or more. The shopkeeper, the gas station, bought those goblets for $1.50. They have added on the cost solely of promoting the promotion, the cost of the display, the cost of any advertising that they choose in order to tell you about the deal. And they come up with a figure of $2. The normal retail on that item, which they've negotiated from the supplier, and which any one of you can negotiate from your suppliers, would normally be $5. Your banner on the window says, come in, spend $5 or more, and take that beautiful crystal glass away for only $2. What has it cost you? Nothing. And it works. It works very effectively. To give you an example, while I was involved in the management of the Roseland Shopping Center, we came up with a promotion which to this day, as far as I am aware, still holds the record. It was simply this, and I thank our signwriting friends out there for doing this little banner for me. I don't know whether you can see it. But it was a $6.95 bottle of Charlie perfume, which you could have for 25 cents with a purchase of $5 or more. We could not cope with the number of people queued up for a 25-cent bottle of perfume. It cost us 23 cents to have it made up specially to our requirements. In fairness to you, I've got to say that there was no commercial pack at that time available for $6.95, but the equivalent volume of perfume would have retailed at approximately that figure. And it was a genuine offer. Promoting can be as simple and as low cost as that. High traffic into your store. If you plan it seasonally, as we did just before Mother's Day, it's an incredibly powerful promotion. There isn't one of you out there today who can't get up off your mules and go into that room right there and find 1 or 2 suppliers that wouldn't give you a line that you could run as a self-liquidator. Forget lost leaders. We'll talk about that this evening if we get together. But that you couldn't run as a self-liquidator. There's a couple of guys sat over there going to sleep who've got a premium stand out there who could supply you with no end of merchandise, I feel sure, that you could use in a lost leader situation, in a self-liquidator, I beg your pardon, situation. Simple, easy, effective merchandising tools that we should all be aware of and need to know about if we're to compete with the giant budgets of the bigger stores and the bigger merchandisers who can afford massive television advertising and so forth. Ladies and gentlemen, my time has run out very quickly. If you're in the manufacturing end, or distribution end, don't lose sight of that incredible self-liquidator. I was responsible in working with our friends from Flash And I see you've got a free bottle of flash down there today, Liz. That's good. Some years ago, I came up with a premium, which was a bedside table lamp that had a clock in it. And instead, like the normal clock radio of switching on and playing the music or going off with a revolting sound, what happened was this light switched itself on at the time you set the alarm and continued to flash, or had a buzzer. Now, we took these and we put them on the back of the flash package, and we bought, I think, if I recall correctly, we did the experiment over 100 stores. And we bought 100 of these lamps, and we put it on the back of the pack, cut out this coupon, send it in with half the normal retail price of that lamp, and receive one of these beautiful flashing lamps with the compliments of the manufacturer. It was one of the most successful promotions they ever ran. We didn't sell a single lamp. But I wasn't kidding when I told you that it was successful. Because what we really designed that to do was not to sell lamps to the public off the back of the pack. And I don't suppose very many people bought that pack because of the lamp offer on the back. But what we did was we equipped our merchandisers, we equipped our salesmen with this beautiful lamp. And they went in to you, and you, and you, and you, and they said, look, we've got this beautiful premium. We're advertising it on the back of our carton. We'd like to make a display right here in the front of your store. And we'll put the lamp on top of it, and it'll flash to tell people that the product is here. And when the promotion's over, Mr. Retailer, we'd like you to have the lamp with our compliments. We instantly had 100 beautiful displays in the front of every store that we approached with the premium. No, people didn't buy the product because of the premium on the back, but we bought the display space with the premium that we offered at retail level. And an outstanding promotion. A little bit of creative thinking, that's all it takes. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been remarkably patient. Indeed remarkably tolerant. I'm reminded of the story of the Jewish gentleman who, having been married for some 50 years, returned home on the day of his anniversary to find a beautiful Rolls-Royce parked in the driveway. And he went into his wife and he said, darling, who owns the Rolls? She says, it's yours. He says, it's mine. She says, it's yours. She says, we've been married for 50 years. She says, every time we made love, I put $1 in the jar. Today, I bought your Rolls Royce. He says, why didn't you tell me sooner? I'd have given you all my business. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. If there is time, can I take just a couple of quick questions? If there's anything specific, if not, we'll leave it until